I should have told you this a long time ago. I love you.
I love you too. I wish I could live another 1,000 years so we could be together again.
So last week, Boom Studios announced what their PR 2020 annual would be, and it is entitled Power Rangers Sins of the Future, which will deal directly with the Wes and Jen relationship. So the last on-screen appearance of Jennifer Scott's was back in Power Rangers Wild Force episodes 24 and 25, Reinforcements of the Future. At the end of that two-parter, we were not really given a status update as to whether or not Jen and Wes got together, whether Jen stayed back in the year 2002, but we do know that that this comic does take place after said events, which means we're finally going to be getting an answer to that. Now, whether or not it takes place before or after Forever Red is not given any specifics on, but I don't really see Forever Red playing a factor in this story, so we can just throw that out altogether, so it probably doesn't really matter. That being said, I do feel as though that this book is going to try to give some clarity on the status of the Wes and Jen relationship and the ultimate consequences it can have for Wes and Jen getting together. The fact that the book is going to ultimately deal with this aspect could mean that we could see the breakup between Wes and Jen. Because in my opinion, there really is no way for the two to be together without irreparably damaging the timeline and possibly destroying the universe. Think of it this way. If Wes is the ancestor to Alex, now given how Alex exists in the End of Time Part 2 with Wes allegedly being dead without Wes possibly either having had sex with anybody is beyond me. I don't know. That being said, let's just say that Wes and Jen keep Alex from being born. Well, what happens there? Well, Alex doesn't exist. He's not killed by Rancic. Jen and the other four do not go back in time to the year 2001 to capture Rancic. They never meet Wes. And then universe apocalyptic time paradox ensues.
The encounter could create a time paradox, the results of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe. Granted, that's a worst-case scenario. The destruction might, in fact, be very localized, limited to merely our own galaxy.
Now, let's just say, for example, that maybe Wes is fine. Maybe Alex is not a direct descendant of Wes. Maybe he's a direct descendant to siblings of Wes that we don't know about that maybe Mr. Collins had prior to Wes. I don't know. That seems to fit Mr. Collins' personality from the beginning of the show. Let's just throw that away. Alex is fine. What is the damage of, say, Jen going back to the year 2002? Because let's just go ahead and gut it. Wes is not going to the year 3000 to live there. Sorry, Ranger Review. That ain't happening. I'm sorry. I see Time Force and to a much larger extent Alex having a problem. His ancestor who has, cucked him with his girlfriend living in the same time period as him. I just imagine all parties involved it'd be an awkward situation for everybody. Another problem would be having a 31st century citizen running around the year 2001. I'm sorry, I see Time Force having some problems with that, and to another extent, Alex. There's just too much of a risk of what she knows causing irreparable damage going forward. Jen and co. don't really have the best track record of staying out of history's way. Even when they tried to keep the future from being changed, they ultimately just said, screw the rules, and that's not a person you want living in the 21st century, is someone that basically just doesn't play by the rules. So let's just say Jen agrees to just stay out of history's way. She just wants to be with Wes, and they just agree to go off somewhere. The next problem that comes into play is, what if Wes and Jen have kids? Now, you could make the argument that Wes and Jen just wouldn't have kids. That doesn't really fit their MO. They seem like they would want to be parents at some point, especially Wes. He seems like he'd be a fatherly type of guy, and Jen seems like she'd be extremely maternal. The problem here is that you would have an entire genealogy going forward that did not exist before. And even if their kid, say didn't become a supervillain, or they didn't do something that was just super important to history, the problem is it's the incremental changes in time that build up over the course of the generations. So even if, for say, Wes and Jen's kid or kids didn't do anything significant in history, the problem is that unless something happens to wipe out the Wes and Jen genealogy, they're going to have kids, and then their kids are going to have kids. And keep in mind, we're dealing with a time span of 1,000 years. Someone in that genealogy, or several people, because again, it's not just one event. It's things that it's incremental bits that build up, which eventually cause a ripple effect and eventually a butterfly effect, which could ultimately destroy the 31st century. Now, that's a little complex, and I don't know if the comic book would actually go into that. But it is something that is a plausible reality. It's not just, oh, their kid grows up and becomes the next Lord Zed or Lord Draken. That would be cliche and that would be stupid. But it's just, it could be something as small as maybe they save somebody from getting hit by a bus that was supposed to be hit by a bus. So they go all Edith Keeler with Star Trek City on the Edge of Forever. Maybe that kid ends up becoming a doctor and saving somebody that was not supposed to be saved, that was supposed to die from like the flu or the common cold. Just little stuff like that. Or maybe not just them. Like I said earlier, it could be their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren. Somebody is going to do something which is going to cause an effect to change the 31st century, which, if the 31st century, as we know it, doesn't exist, that's going to create a time paradox. And because Time Force and Time Ranger use the linear timeline theory, nobody wins with them getting together, unfortunately. I'm assuming that we're probably going to see something similar to what we saw in Time Ranger with Tatsuya and Yuri in Time Ranger episode 50, where the two just realized that they can't be together. Whereas in Tatsuya and Yuri's case, it was more so the space-time continuum literally would not let them be together because they changed the course of human history. This case is going to be, yeah, Wes, this ain't gonna work. I'm sorry, but there is a good chance we could literally destroy the space-time continuum, just you and me getting together. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that there is a possibility that Wes and Jen could be a thing? Do you think that there's a possibility that the writers could get around it and write it in a certain way to where it's plausible and believable? Or do you think that we're going to get a bittersweet Tatsuya and Yuri-esque Time Ranger ending where it just doesn't work out? Anyway, leave your thoughts down below. Rate, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications after you subscribe. Let you guys know when I've uploaded a new video. My name is Tanner. This is Scarlet Writer's Geek Corner, and I will see you guys next time.